Hi, everyone. It's your girl, Dynasty.
And I'm Charles.
And welcome to Mental Health in the
Hood.
And this is the Mental Health Show.
Okay.
All right. Welcome, everyone. This is season 3. Season 3 is all about mental health and relationship goals. This is episode 4. And the topic of today is relationship insight from LGBT perspective. So today we have Sam, who goes by pronouns he and him. And we also have Quatsine, who goes by pronouns she and her. And we're so happy to have both of them on the show. So let's clap it up.
Oh, yes. Okay, we can't forget about the shout outs and celebrations, Dynasty.
Oh, yeah, shout outs and celebrations. Always important to show love, give love, and receive love. So here we go. We first and foremost want to thank everybody who watched episode 3, which talked about mental health and relationships and marriage in the pandemic. So if you haven't got a chance to check it out, please check it out. The relationship was great. I thought the relationship was great. The episode was great, and you guys should check it out. The next thing is we want to thank everybody who came to our past Zoom meetings. We talked about environmental trauma and mental health, and it went to so many different directions, Dad, right? We talked about social trauma, cultural trauma. What did you think about those conversations?
Well, the conversations was really deep. I liked the way everyone was open to the topic and was willing to express themselves, especially about their childhood, even as a adult, the things that they go through dealing with trauma in an environment. So it was very impactful, the conversations. And I thank everyone who showed up and participated that day. And we appreciate y'all at Mental Health in the Hood.
Okay, awesome. So also thank you everyone who has been subscribing to the show, letting people know about the show, following us, supporting us, resharing. We appreciate that. We're really trying to heal people all across the world. So it's very important to show love to you guys for helping us to get the message out. All right, Dad? Okay. So we're going to be talking about relationship goals, and we both want to just set the tone around this conversation. This is not a conversation where we are setting the standard of relationships. We are just basically trying to give some insight, let you hear from everyday people who are living it, who are breathing it, who are in it, who have, had different experiences that nobody really talks about. And we really want to shed light just on the health and well-being of relationships, talking about the challenges and the growth of relationships and the transitions of relationships and how it impacts our mental health overall. So, which is very, very important, right? So I just want to make sure we all knew and got some education about this episode. So we're going to jump into the meat and potatoes of this interview. All right. Okay, so we're going to start with question 1, and my dad is going to start us off tonight.
Okay, so hello, how y'all doing today?
Good.
Okay, I'm getting some smiles. That's what I was trying to get, some smiles. So I'm gonna ask y'all a few questions, and I just want you to relax, be open, and know when you deliver what you have to deliver, you're helping everyday people out there. All right, so question 1 is, what does relationship goals mean to you? Think about it. What does relationship goals mean to you? And whoever want to go first, feel free.
Mm-hmm.
I can start us off. So for me, a relationship goal is, when I meet someone who's really grounded in the present, but can tell me about their future, I'm a little ambitious. So sometimes I want to see a 5-year plan, right? I want to know what is it going to look like if I'm with you and you with me? And what is that going to look like in 5 years? And that might be a little too much for some people. But I really value people who have their own plan set ahead and who maybe want me to be a part of the plan. So I think it's really important to meet people who can make those kinds of commitments for the future, but also are trying to live in the present and live as well as they can, all things considering that we're in a global pandemic.
Wow. That's okay. I like that. That was deep. I like that. You're really helping people. Okay.
I would like to say, I want a dynamic of a power couple. That's what relationship goals to me is. And what that entails is having good emotional regulation on both ends, being able to regulate your emotions, being able to communicate those emotions through emotional intelligence. That's really, really important to me. And another thing is like assertive communication, where we are both able to communicate what we need from one another, and able to revisit that as well. If ever that some things are, if we're out of tune, if we're not on the same vibration, definitely, checking in, seeing how that's going. And then another part of that, the power couple dynamic would be, to echo Sam, to have somebody with a 5-year plan and somebody who's ambitious as well. I find myself an ambitious person as well. And so I want somebody to match that energy, so that we can live, honestly, a comfortable life. And that to me is what relationship goals is.
Okay, okay. Just a quick question. What if that person off top didn't have a 5-year plan?
I was just thinking that. Oh,
Yeah,
shoot.
because that's big though, because some people actually don't think that far or feel like they should think that far,
Yeah.
but that person is really a great person.
Mhm.
How long would you give that person to be able to come up to thinking to that level?
I
Yeah.
think I would settle for a 6-month plan. I think if they can give me 6 months, that's a good compromise. I just
Okay.
want someone who is able to have the sensibilities to know where they want to be in 5 years, right? Even if right now where you are isn't where you want to be, where do you want to be in 5 years? How do you want to get there? And what is that going to look like?
Okay.
So I'll settle. I'll settle for six
Okay.
months.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, 6 months, you should know a whole lot about a person.
I
All
think I
right.
would give it as a homework assignment. Like, I really need you to think about this. Consider everything.
Yeah.
Come back to me next week and let me know.
And, and,
Like,
and you know what? And it's, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go
yeah,
ahead.
like I think just setting that expectation, like I really need someone, if I'm really digging the person and I see it going somewhere, letting them know, like, I see this going somewhere, but I also need this from you just so that I can feel safety. This is a need that I have that I need you to also work with.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Because I'm hearing two
I
different
was thinking, I said, it's
perspectives.
almost,
Yeah, I was thinking two different perspectives because you have Sam that's
yeah.
like, okay, we can compromise on at least if you know what you're doing for 6 months, can you at least tell me what you're doing for 6 months? And then you have Quatine that's like, no, figure it out and bring it back. So it's good to kind of see that. What were you going to say to
Yeah,
that?
because I was really thinking, because it's so many words, they're asking the ultimate question, what everybody should be asking themselves is, who are you?
Mhm.
Who are you? That's what it comes down to. So I think that is very fair. It's very fair. And if people actually approached it, relationships in that manner, if they're looking for it to go long term, I think that's a great approach.
And so what I'm thinking too is
Thank you
that
guys.
when you guys think about the relationship goals, I'm wondering, does this mean that does that come with age and time? Because I'm pretty sure a lot of us didn't think about relationship goals back in the day. So I'm wondering, does that come with age and time now to say at this age and this time in my life, you need to have this plan versus before, I don't think we even knew you had to have a plan. So does that come with like time and age or just like failures in relationships? Where does that goal come from? Like, where does it stem from?
Yeah, I think for me it comes from life experience, you know. I don't want to put a number on it. Like I've met plenty of like very young people who have more life experience than I have and are able to have life goals and things like that. So I think when it comes down to it, it's about the life experiences you've had and what you've done with them and how they've shaped you in your own life, you know.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Awesome. Cartine, did you have anything to add before we go on to the next question?
Yeah, I think for myself, I was in a long-term relationship for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And we were very upfront from the beginning. Like, this is where I want my life to go. And I think I want to continue that if I were to engage into another long-term relationship, just so that I can be clear and so that I can feel safe in that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So I'll go on to question 2. Sorry, we went a little bit longer, but I just have to get some perspective.
No, they had some great answers.
Yes, they did. Okay. So what are 3 essential qualities that you look for in your partner?
Mm.
I'll go first this time. So definitely goal-oriented or ambitious. Somebody that goes after what they want, and somebody who knows themselves enough to know what they want and have the strength to like fall through with those plans. Um, if that means you want to be a nail tech, you be that nail tech. I don't care. Just be like, make sure you do what you want to do and make sure that you like rock at it when you get there. Um, Another thing would be like caring and affectionate for sure is something that I need. But more broadly speaking, empathetic. Somebody who has empathy and is able to like recognize when, like, while I may not necessarily like, I don't need you playing guessing games with me, but if you notice that I'm off, to know me enough to know like, hey, you need a little hug right now. Let me go ahead and embrace you. Or let me give you a kiss on the forehead because I know that that makes you feel good when I think that you're off. So definitely that too, somebody that's empathetic and able to like be on, like I said earlier, be on that same wavelength with me emotionally. And assertive communication, somebody who's able to communicate clearly and someone that can tell me their needs and is able to ask me what my needs are as well, so that we're on the same page.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of similar answers. So my number one need is emotional intelligence. And that's not just knowing my emotions, that's knowing your emotions too. What are your triggers? What are the things that are going on in your life? And how are your emotions going to impact me and impact us? I think it's so important. And I think it's, even as an educator now, I try to teach my students that emotional intelligence at the end of the day is what's going to carry them in a lot of ways in life. So that's my number one, definitely emotional intelligence. And then number two, career ambition, you know, and this doesn't have to be someone who like wants to be a lawyer or a doctor or have these like lucrative careers. Just, you know, what do you want to make out of your life? What do you want to do? Like, do you want to travel? Like, what kind of person do you want to be? And what do you want to contribute to in this world is really important to me, especially as a teacher. I think it's really important to want to do something with your life in that way. And then my third one is you got to have some queer sensibilities, man. You know, you don't have to be queer necessarily. You don't have to identify as queer, but you have to know the language. You know, as a transgender man, I'm not going to date someone who doesn't even know what these terms mean, who don't even know what it means to be trans, you know? And that's my absolute boundary. And I don't expect people to know the whole alphabet. I don't expect you to have an encyclopedia, but come on, it's the 21st century and everyone can use Google these days, right? And if I had a fourth one, I'd say good hygiene, because I think that's sometimes really hard to come across as people with us.
Right.
Exactly.
So,
And that was
that
great.
was a good one. So
Yeah,
Sam, just
yeah.
to go back, what does queer mean? So when you say queer language, what does queer mean and what is queer language?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, when I was growing up, I grew up in New Orleans, right? And I had no vocabulary for queerness. I grew up in the South. I grew up very Catholic. So all I know was gay and lesbian. That's the only thing I knew. I didn't know anything about transgender, about queer, about anything else until I got to college, right? So when I say queer language, I mean knowing that there's, you know, something outside of the gender binary, right? There's transgender people, there's bigender people, you know, there's possibilities because of the queer community. And I just want people to know that they exist, that they're out there, and that you know something else besides someone is either gay or lesbian, right?
Right. Right.
Gotcha.
Got it.
Okay. Now I didn't heard everything. I'm getting educated myself too. So what about one thing I didn't hear? What about a sense of humor or having fun? You know, things like that. Do y'all like that in person?
I'm definitely a sense of humor.
Okay.
Somebody who can make me laugh. I can overlook certain things if you can make me laugh.
Okay. All right. I just want to know.
So Dad, what
right.
are your three essentials since you sense of humor one of yours?
Well, I'm saying, I guess I try to have a sense of humor sometimes, but I do like to laugh. I'm saying it's better to laugh. Laugh is good for the soul. You know, I've been in so much pain in my life. I wouldn't want to be with someone we can't laugh together. You know, we can't laugh, but every everything that they said is very healthy, and I can be compatible with them as far as agreeing with them is what I'm looking for is prioritizing in the relationship. You know, I'm saying everybody needs to be fulfilled, needs to be known who you're dealing with. The person that's dealing with you, they need to know you. So if a person is taking that time to know you and your wants, your needs, what makes when you're not feeling well,
Mhm.
times when you are feeling well. Because you know, a lot of times in relationships, a person can be right next to you and be depressed, and you don't even know because they care about you so much. They trying to be good for you, but you don't even know that that person right there is not feeling so good themselves. So it's good to know each other and kind of have some similarities, you know, in so many ways.
Awesome. All right. I think you have the next question.
Yeah, I do have the next question. You put me on an interview, so but we gonna move forward. So my next question, this is something that you know that digs more into the past, things that affect you, the outcome of you know things that you've been through in your life moving forward. You know, it's called life experience. Uh, Not so good choices, bad choices, and moving forward. So I'm gonna move to question three. And question three is: in dealing with your own past trauma, what are some of the challenges you struggle with within your relationships? With dealing with your own past trauma, what are some of the challenges you struggle with within your relationships?
Sure, I can go ahead and take this one. So for me, I grew up in a very large household. There was 9 people in my house, and my mom was the only adult that was able to take care of us. And my mom would tell us, a good child is a quiet child. A good child is a child who doesn't communicate their needs because they don't have needs, right? And as I became an adult and as I grew up, that's kind of how I operated in relationships. I didn't have needs because being a good partner meant that I didn't have them, right? And even now, I'm really trying to understand what that did to me as a child, and I'm trying to communicate my needs, but there's still a part of me that there's definitely hesitation, right? Because it feels selfish to have needs. But I'm trying to learn that needs aren't selfish. Like, that's self-love by having needs and being able to communicate them. And hopefully, if my mom is watching this, I love you, Mom. You did your best. Don't take this personally.
Right. Okay. Quasine.
So for me, I was someone that experienced a lot of abuse as a child. And with that abuse came codependency. And so one of the things that I struggle with because of my past trauma has been codependent relationships and not being able to identify where one person ends and where I begin, or vice versa. And so um, having to being single and having to figure out who I am without another person has been a beautiful experience, although a challenging one, because I recognize ways that I was codependent that I didn't mean to. It was the way that I knew how to survive. But now, reflecting, doing a lot of reflections, I'm able to see oh, that wasn't healthy. Oh, I don't necessarily need to know all about this, or I don't necessarily need to be a part of every single thing that my partner does, or I don't need to be as clingy. I think that that was the word that described me in my relationship. I was very needy. And
Yeah.
I'm able to recognize now how I can give those needs, how I can provide that and self-soothe before I desperately seek it out in someone else.
Mhm, mhm.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
And so for both of you guys, when did you know that that was an issue? Did someone have to tell you, or you learned through your own experiences?
I think for me, I just was getting into relationship after to relationship where the person would say kind of harshly, I feel like you're not very interesting. Like, you don't tell me that anything's going on or going wrong. And I thought I was being good. I thought by not having any problems, I was being a good partner. And, it wasn't until my most recent relationship where I realized that's kind of toxic to not put that on them and to claim that I don't have any needs when I did. So yeah, it took a lot of heartbreak, I think, to really realize that that was a problem.
Yeah, that's pretty deep when I think about it too, Dynasty and Sam, that, you know, when someone instill in you that a quiet child is a good child, you carry that. That's deep. When Sam first said that, you know, I know Sam respect the parents, right? So when they say that, you carry that for a long time. You carry it through elementary, you carry it through junior high, you carry it through high school. And then once you get involved with someone else through these times, you figuring you're doing the right thing by it puts you in a place of submission. You know, things might go on that you don't like and you still not saying nothing because you feel like, okay, I'm in it to be a good person.
Mhm.
I should stay shut down. That's how deep I look at that statement right there. So I commend you for moving forward and being the person that you are today. So it seems like you're doing pretty well in your life now.
I'm trying.
And Quats, when was that moment for you?
That moment was also during the breakup, the long-term relationship. One of the feedback, because we gave each other feedback, was that I was emotionally dependent. Now the word that I know it to be is codependent. And I started really exploring and really reflecting by myself. And then I had additional support through therapy.
Mm,
Mhm.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's
Therapy is good.
that's one of those internal supports.
Yep.
Exactly. Exactly.
Therapy is great.
And
I like that.
one thing about relationships I noticed from just hearing previous people's conversations is that those breakups are also lessons. And if you don't find out that lesson, that toxicity carries over because two people always are contributing to toxicity, rather their intention was not to, or
Yep.
it was.
Yep.
And I think that's the part that is invisible, is that intention. And so when you do have that breakup and you have that heartbreak, my dad always says, like, once you get understanding, it will help heal the pain.
Yeah.
A lot of us have heartbreak because we don't understand what happened. How do we get here? Why do I feel this way? I'm pissed, or whatever that may mean. And then you go through this, it's like a grief period, you know, when you go through the different stages of grief. So you go through these different stages where you accept it, then you don't accept it, then you feel guilty, then you don't feel guilty, you know, and you go through these different emotions. But I feel like once you get past the emotional component and you kind of like went through this healing process, then you get to see yourself, because now you no longer see the relationship because you're moving past that. That's the thing about moving on. It's like you go through this phase of healing and then you go through the move on, because now you are taking the weight, dropping it, and carrying yourself now. You know what I mean? And I think that those phases that you go through kind of help you figure out, okay, where did I take accountability in this situation? And what are the things that I could have did better? And so, yeah.
That's hard to do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's very hard to do it. It takes time.
Yeah.
It takes time. So you moving forward now. So that's a beautiful thing about it. And I think that's why it's so important that we're having these conversations, because for the people who's watching out there, they'll know that they're not in it alone. We all have similar things that we go through in all generations, and some of us, we just haven't figured it out yet. But just continuing to talk about it and bringing awareness is a beautiful thing. So we appreciate y'all being here, Sam, Kwasim, so we can move forward to the next question.
All right. So the next question is, what are some of the challenges for LGBTQ couples and families compared to your straight counterparts or straight relationships? So I'll repeat it just for verification. What are some of the challenges for LGBTQ couples and families compared to your straight friends, you know, or counterparts?
I'll go. So for me, as a transgender woman, one of the things that I find constantly is one, the interest from men who say that they are straight. That kind of complicates things for me, because I'm like, no, you like me, you're queer. And I know that people are entitled to their own sense of who they are, and their own like sexual orientation. But that's typically like how I like approach things. And I try to like be like, no, but that's pretty queer. Like to be with me is to be in a queer relationship because you cannot take my queerness away from me. And so that's dealing with like people who identify as straight. Um, Aside from that, another thing is the judgment that comes for the person, um, if they identify as straight, the judgment that comes. I feel like, typically speaking, men who are interested in dating trans women get a lot of backlash. They have a lot of judgment. They get a lot of harassment, threats, like death threats. Um, and they're ostracized from their social circles, ostracized from their families. And now, granted, that's not to say that trans people don't experience that. Of course, like trans people in general experience that. But when it comes to dating specifically, like those are some of the challenges that arise. Outside of that, when I'm dating somebody that is queer, one of the challenges that we have, when in comparison to like like people who are who have heteronormative relationships, are actually feel like it's kind of balanced, but like it makes me feel better about like walking with that person if they are also queer. Um, so like the judgments and all of that other stuff is not really something that I have to process because that's something that we as queer people have already handled. It's or not handled, have already worked with or worked through. Whereas with somebody that does not identify within the LGBT umbrella has a harder time. So it's also stress on me. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it makes sense.
Yeah, and you know, as a transgender man, I'm right there with you. And I think a big problem in the trans community too is like fetishizing. I get a lot of when I am in the dating world, I get a lot of people wanting to be with me as a fetish. Like, oh, I've always wanted to sleep with or be with a trans man, and it's awful. Like my identity isn't a fetish. Like
Mhm.
it's something that transgender people face every day, especially in the dating world, because you know, just being queer in general, a lot of the population thinks that we're sexually deviant. If you're queer, you must be sexually deviant in some kind of way. And it's almost like a double stigma being queer and also trans. Yeah, and I want to add to that, like I think I have to date queer because dating cis gender people, they're not always able to handle the struggles that I'm going to struggle with. And that's not to say I'm putting my struggles on them, but in order to really have empathy, you have to be in it, right? And some of these people, they're not in it. They don't know what it means to be discriminated based on your identity or your sexuality. So yeah, absolutely. I think those are very similar struggles. And you know, I started my transition, my gender transition just a year ago, and I came out to my mom and she was beautiful and supportive, but she got backlash, right?
Mhm.
So she herself, as a parent who is supporting me in this transition, is experiencing backlash. And it's really hard because you wouldn't experience that if you were in a cis relationship. If you announced it on Facebook, no one would question it. But people are questioning my identity and they're questioning my mom's loyalty to my identity. And that's something that's really hard and unique, I feel like, within the queer spaces. It's really challenging.
Wow, wow. But your mom supports you, and they question her loyalty to you. That seems kind of backwards.
Welcome to rural Louisiana.
Okay, all right. Educate me then.
Martine, have you experienced that too with family? Because I know your family is very supportive.
My family is very supportive. My mom is really involved with the Catholic Church. And so any of the backlash that she gets is from the church, from people from
That's
church.
what. That's what.
And so
Yeah.
there's been a switch. I don't know what the hell happened, but she recently told me that like that I will never be a daughter to her, and that I will always be her son, and that she loves me regardless. Um, but she was opening up to me my transition, and slowly she has been withdrawing from it. So I don't know what's going on. some kind of internal struggle where she is challenging her own values. And this just happened about 3 months ago. So me and my mom are kind of rocky right now because of that statement. And she was so supportive at first, and I feel like there may be some influences that are making her withdraw and like renege from supporting me. Yeah.
Well, hopefully, she'll snap back to supporting you. I think in that situation, just my opinion, just when she first heard it, initially want to support you off the top, then actually having time to process it, hearing different people opinions, outside whisper, and probably her not being confident in the way she really wants to feel.
Yeah.
Thinking for her, you, family, and just standing on that instead of, because sometimes we can let the outside whispers get the best of us.
Yeah.
Sometimes the closest people to us give us some outside whispers and it affect us, right? Even when we say it doesn't. So if you see a change of attitude, it can be similar things to that. Doesn't mean that she doesn't love you. But I think, even us as parents, like sometimes we just don't always have it all together. And so, you asking us to, submit to something that we're not very educated about, right? So once a person get more educated about it and understand, just like Sam was saying, oh, they think we queer, we just some sexual beings. And no, that's not the case at all. It's like we regular human beings, and we just like people, we just do it in a different way. So I just say, just keep the faith and know that things will get better. Just keep your attitude in the right place, and your mom will come along.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And we support you, and we are happy that you guys are being the face of your community as well. And you guys should be able to do what you want to do, how you want to do it, when you want to do it, because we do the same thing. And I know how it feels also, like even with the relationship with my father, it's hard sometimes as well, because him being where he was for 26 years and me being in the space I was, I had to educate him. Like, he'll tell me, well, I don't know if this is the right guy for you. And I'm like, well, it don't seem like you figured it out either. Like, so we both in the same boat at this point, right? Yeah. And then also having a father that's only 16 years apart, which is like a brother type of thing. So it's a lot. So I wanted people to kind of see that perspective of what straight people go through. And I think you guys had another term, it was cisgender, right? Did I say it right? Cisgender, and then straight. And then, because everybody needs to know, like, everybody still encounters challenges regardless of who they date. So, but just the judgment is always different, and the influences are always different. And, it's just good for you guys to shed that. Like my dad said, I really hope that people continue to support you. I know, Quatine, that your family, your mama's going to come around. So we're going to keep everything in good spirits.
Okay. All right. So we're going to go to question 5. And question 5 is, how do you prioritize your mental health in a relationship with your partner? So just elaborate on that just a little bit to give you an idea where I'm going with that, is the fact that you have your own mental state that you deal with daily, right? Daily throughout your life. So in order to keep your own self in check, what are some of the things you do as far as self-love, self-care, right? To keep things stable in your relationship?
Yeah, sure. I can start with this one. As I said earlier, I had a hard time saying I had needs, right? So step 1 is recognizing, hey, I do have needs and they don't have anything to do with you. And that's fine. It's okay to have needs that your partner can't fulfill, because your partner should not be your everything. They shouldn't be your one source of interaction, your one source of love, and your one source of affirmation. And I think people need to have that conversation with their partner. I think they need to say it, like, I love you, and I'm going to spend a lot of time without you. I'm going to do things that make me happy. So some things that I do in my relationships is that I have interests and hobbies that have nothing to do with my relationship. And physically nothing. I will physically leave the space where my relationship exists and go do something else. Especially with COVID. I know that's hard for a lot of us, but even if it's driving in my car and jamming out to my, my tunes and just myself, I'm on PCH. Sometimes I'll go grocery shopping by myself and get stuff that only I'm going to eat. I'm not going to share it with anyone. It's just food for me, not food for my partner. It's me food. Food is my love language. Yeah. And just being okay with being alone, I think, is how I prioritize mental health. Like telling myself that I have an identity outside of this relationship. And sometimes you need time alone to be able to sharpen and hone that identity. And going to therapy. I'm in a grad program now to be a marriage and family therapist. And I think everyone should go to therapy, even if you feel like your relationship is fine. Like things happen every day, especially now with COVID. And it's always nice to just have someone to just talk to it about and then walk away.
Wow.
You touched on a lot of good points. But I'm gonna
wait. Yeah, that's a great answer. Yeah.
Yeah. To echo Sam, I definitely therapy is one of the greatest tools that I use. And general self-care, which includes like alone time for sure. This happens with whether or not I'm in a relationship, making sure that I like when the movie theaters were open, I would go to the theaters by myself. I would go to dinners by myself. I would grocery shop by myself. I would go on walks to Redondo Beach by myself, just because you need space sometimes. And journal is another one. That's one of the main ones for me, is to process everything, is to journal. That's one of the ways that I maintain that's one of my self-care routines. And in a relationship specifically is doing those check-ins. I think those check-ins are so important to see, hey, am I being supportive? Do you feel like there have been any areas where I could be more supportive? Am I showing you love the way that you'd like for me to show you love? I actually think that we're spending too much time together. Can we actually spend less time together? So for me, I used to do check-ins every like week or 2 weeks, I want to say, where we would just like make sure that we were on the same page. And we would rate it like, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like really good, where do you think we are? Let's shout it at the same time. And let's say it was one of us was a 3 and one of us was an 8. It's like, all right, we need to have a conversation. What's going on? So that one I found as a really useful tool. But yeah, that's some of the things that I practice.
Sam and Kwasi, do y'all realize that y'all have some good coping skills? I'm listening. I'm saying they have some good coping skills. You can tell that therapy is good.
It took a lot of heartbreak and a lot of not having good coping skills.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it starts unhealthy first, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is the result of many years of not looking like this, right? Many hot messes, many late nights, many canceled therapy appointments.
Yeah.
And also too, I think the reason why we ask that question is that people think that I think Kwatine had touched on it as well, as the codependency, is that sometimes you have to have your independence in a relationship. You have to have happiness on your own. You have to have those self-affirmations on your own. You have to love yourself enough. You have to care about yourself enough, because what the partner does is just add to it. That's not their responsibility to tell you that you're beautiful every day. It's not their responsibility to keep you company all the time. And I think that me and my father, we always talk about this alone time and how important it is. So Dad, why don't you enlighten us on this alone time as part of to protect our mental health in a relationship?
You noticed that when they were talking about it, and I was going to say something, but you brought it up.
I know this your favorite part.
Yeah.
This your favorite part. So
I'm not going to necessarily say it's my favorite part, but it's really important, because I think when you are able to spend time with yourself, to analyze the thoughts that you're thinking, caring about yourself, and knowing that you can be by yourself and still grow, right, is an amazing thing, because most people don't like to be by themselves. or they feel like if they by themselves that they're not good enough for no one else. But I'm a strong believer that isolation time is needed to grow as a person, to be all you can be for someone else when you need to. It gives you a time to recuperate, to excel, and just everything that you need. And I always used to talk to Dynasty about that. Like, take advantage of the time that you have alone. It doesn't mean that's the sacrifice that you make to love yourself, to be able to help someone else. Just like we all put a lot of energy into our work. But if we just totally exalt ourselves out, we're no good for nobody, especially for ourselves. So that is very important for me, and it's a smart thing to do. It's a smart thing to do, because that's the number one thing when it comes to self-care, because it gives you that time to understand, who am I, what do I want, what do I want to do, what does it look like, and what I have to sacrifice to get there, right? So it makes it a lot more manageable when you have a clear mind, and your mental health is in the right place. Because I believe that this world is 90% mental to get through. I really believe that.
All right. So we have our last question for today. And the question is, what are some of the internal and external supports that can help maintain a positive and healthy relationship? So internal means things that you need internally for you to maintain the relationship, and externally are things that may be things that you need outside of the relationship to keep you guys together and maintain that as well. So it can be examples if you feel like couples need therapy, that may be helpful, those check-ins. But what are some like the internal and external supports that you have not already stated that are very important to maintain a long-term relationship? I knew that was deep. That's why I asked that question.
Yeah. And just to help y'all out a little bit is that I know that y'all stated a lot of things that describe internal things, but you ever hear that the saying of, you have to live within, then out? Most people live outer and then they forget about the inner, right? And when you forget about the inner, that's when you end up in places and situations that sometimes destroy our lives, that drop us to rock bottom. And then we go internal to get that, to build that, to heal that, to be able to grow as a person. So just a little bit to open your mind, just a little bit.
Yeah. I think for me, like, internal is falling in love with myself every day, like falling in love with the person I am and the person I'm becoming every single day, even when it's not easy, right? Even when I want to think about things that I did in the past that maybe weren't so hot or weren't so good. Who am I now, right? And it's back to that self-love, right? I think self-love is so important. And I think, at the end of the day, you really need to look in the mirror and you need to decide if you're going to be able to live with who you see in the mirror every single day. And if not, how can you change that? How can you fall in love with yourself? And then for external, I think for me, it's, never let people into your relationship who aren't friends of the relationship, right? I think it's easy to get caught up in the drama and the fanfare and stuff, but if you're not going directly to your partner to tell your partner what you feel about them, and you're going to someone else, that someone else is not a friend of your relationship. Because if they were, they would be telling you, you need to go back to your partner and tell them what you're telling me now. So externally, I think just making sure that the people you let into your lives and into your relationship are friends of your relationship, I think will go a really long way.
Great answer.
I think internal for me goes back to like codependency and having to learn boundaries, having to learn very clear boundaries. And learning boundaries helps you in like all aspects of your life. Like it helps in work, it helps in personal, romantic, familial. And for me, those are really important. And as far as like external, I think one of the things that I wish I could have done would have been like couples therapy, because that's a professional that is not involved with either of you and is able to have a balanced view on what's going on. And if for whatever reason it is terrifying to, at least this is how I perceive it, if it's terrifying for me to express my needs to my partner, then expressing it in front of a professional without judgment would be easier. And so having that as additional support, I think is something that I'm going to bring up for my next relationship, is like, once we become long term, like, hey, I think we should go to couples therapy, even if we're good, just so that we can learn more about one another.
Okay. That was two great answers.
Yes,
I'm quite
yes.
sure. I'm quite sure the people out there watching, man, this has been pretty interesting. It's really been interesting. Y'all insight on everything has been on point. It has been on point. And I think people need to understand that, the struggle in life is real, but the struggle is really what builds the person. It's an opportunity to grow and learn more, to be all you can be, and stand on that, and stand on that. It doesn't always come from a person who just have a great childhood, a great teenage life, and young adulthood. Really comes from the struggle, people who go through it. And man, it's just been great though.
Yeah, it's
Two
been
great
great.
guests, Dynasty.
Yes, I know. All right. So we want to thank you guys for coming on the show today. We really, really appreciate it. You guys are our first Zoom, like my dad was saying. So this is something different. Of course, we had a few technical difficulties, but it's COVID. So who
Yeah.
knows what to do at this point. So I'm just going to get some final announcements before we close out. So this is we have our final episode, which is going to be episode 5 of season 3. That is happening on Sunday, March 7th at 9:00 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. But we also have our final call to action group workout that is happening the same day of our final episode that is launching. So it's going to be Sunday, March 7th at 10:30 a.m. So there's a lot happening. These are our final Zoom episodes, our final YouTube episode, and this is also our final group workout for season 3. So after March, March 7th, we'll be officially closing out season 3 and moving officially to season 4 later on in the fall. So I'm excited. Thanks everybody for following us on Instagram. Thank you guys for your continued support. Thank you for these 2 special guests who have shed light on us and educated us about their experiences, because we're never too old to learn. And again, thank you guys again, and subscribe. And we're closing out, so everyone have a good one.
Thank you,